तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापित स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमः ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिसिद्धान्त सरस्वती निति नामिने। श्रीवार्षभानवी देवी दायिताय कृपाब्दये कृष्णसम्बन्ध विज्ञानदायिने प्रभवे नमः। माधुर्योज्ज्वल प्रेमाद्य श्रीरूपानुगभक्तिदा श्रीगौरकरुणाशक्ति विग्रहाय नमोस्तुते। नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्तये दीनतारिणे रूपानुग विरुद्धाप सिद्धांत द्वंतहारिणे। नमो गौरकिशोराय साक्षाद् वैराग्यमूर्तये विप्रलम्ब वृषाम्भोदे पदाम्बुजायते नमः। नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानंद नामिने गौरशक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपानुगवरायते। गौरविर्भावभूमेस्त्वं निर्देष्ट सज्जन प्रिय वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरतिशे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकम्। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। प्रतौ पंगौर्मम मंद मतिर्गति मत्सर्वस्व पदाम्भोजौ राधा मदन मोहनो दिव्याद् वृंदारण्य कल्पद्रुमाद श्रीमद् रत्नांगद सिंहासनस्थौ श्रीमद् राधा श्रील गोविंद देवौ प्रेष्ठालिभिः सेव्यमानो स्मरामि। श्रीमान सरसारंभी वंशीवट तटस्थित कर्षण वेणुस्वनैर्गोपी गोपीनाथ श्रीस्तुनः तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So we're continuing with the same theme that we had taken last week. Kind of slightly modified those set of slides, so we will be going through the same slides as well, which are actually I think there's too much of yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's very good. Oh, great. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we will continue with the same theme that we took last time, because somehow last time I had not completed. Really wanted to cover. One second. So yeah. So I put the same slides which we had done last time, the same ones I have put, and also I have added many things. So on some information, some slides we'll go a little quickly because we've already seen that last time. I'll just briefly kind of recap that, for those who are not there. But we will really focus on one particular aspect. Okay, so this whole discussion is from the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto, where there are two discussions from which I have tried to take out this particular information. One is the discussion between Vidura and Maitreya, and the second is between Lord Kapila and Devahuti. And this particular theme comes in almost 6 chapters in the 3rd canto: chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 10, chapter 12, chapter 20 and chapter 26. So in all these chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto, there is this description of Sarga and Visarga. So we all know that Srimad Bhagavatam has 10 topics. The first topic is called Sarga, which is creation, and the second is called Visarga, which is subsequent creation. So there is the primary creation by the Lord and the subsequent creation by Brahmaji. And then of course there are other topics in the Bhagavatam which basically end with the 10th one is Ashraya. So as such it is not that every topic is covered in a particular canto, but generally it is said that the 3rd canto is about Sarga, the 4th canto is Visarga, and so on, and the 10th canto is Ashraya Tattva. So that is the general understanding. Of course these are only 8, but then the 11th and 12th are also counted. The Nirodha, the winding up and all that is the 11th canto, like that. So in this way there are the 10 topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam which are there, and the first and second are considered Sarga and Visarga, and that is exactly what the theme which we had started last time, and we will go over the same theme. So there is some technical information, but and the material that I have used, whenever you see something scanned or photographed, it is basically from the Vidyapeetam's book, basically. That is this Chaupati devotees in Vada, they have made this Srimad Bhagavatam study guide canto by canto, and I found that extremely useful to read Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, cantos like 2 and 3 really put even the most interested reader sometimes, to sleep, and he basically loses track of what's going on really. But as I had just started reading 2nd canto myself using that particular study guide, and I found it to be extremely helpful because they have in fact they have not given too much extra information also. Whatever is there in the Bhagavatam only they have presented, but they have presented in flow charts, diagrams, things that most of us who come from some kind of technical background would appreciate in some way and be able to relate. So I strongly recommend that anybody who is reading Srimad Bhagavatam should, they are done with 1st, 2nd and 3rd cantos already. Yeah, so they have come with 2 volumes till now. The first volume is canto 1 and 2, and the second volume is canto 3. That's how it is. But it's very well done. It really helps one. I mean, if one has some interest to read, then it would help. It would be a very good aid, to help. And I personally felt that it was the first time that I understood something about this creation concept also. Basically based on all these charts that they had made, it became a little more easy to connect to everything and really understand what they're saying. So that's why I just chose the topic. That was what I was reading, so I just took from there. Yeah, so basically as I told you, there is the Sarga, from Mahavishnu. So this part, so the slides which I had already done last time, I'll go over it a little quickly, and the other slides we will go over it slow because there are several new slides I added. Last time we had only about 15 slides. I made it about 30 slides because I've added Visarga also today. So some things I'll go over very quickly. So here basically we see that Mahavishnu, from this undifferentiated thing which is called as Pradhan, the Lord creates Mahat Tattva. So the Mahat Tattva is basically nothing but time is part of it. So time has set into action now. So that's actually Mahat Tattva. And from Mahat Tattva, the first creation is called Ahankar. And from Ahankar we have 3. Ahankar gives in goodness, passion, ignorance 3 things. And this is mainly what we had focused on last time. So Ahankar in the mode of goodness is the Jnana Shakti. From passion is the Kriya Shakti, and ignorance is the Dravya Shakti. Right? So Jnana Shakti is considered goodness, Kriya Shakti is action, so it's considered passion, and Dravya Shakti, it is the effect. So it is extremely gross substances, so that's considered as ignorance. Right? So there is karta, karan and karya. So karana is the cause, but actual karta is considered the daiva. That's the whole thing. That means the living entity only desires and tries, he starts everything. But actually the real karta are the devatas who are actually doing it through the medium of the senses. So that's the concept here. And the karya, the effect, is basically gross matter. So the Bhagavatam explains that ahankar initially gives this, but as more and more ahankar is added, you get this and this. The whole idea is that as more and more ahankar is added, things become more and more gross. And finally you get this. So these are the three things. So Adi Deva, which is basically nothing but the mind and the 10 sense devatas. So that means each of the 10 senses, the knowledge acquiring senses and the working senses, have a demigod actually who connects and controls that thing. So we will see that also today a lot. And the Karya Shakti, the Dravya or the gross matter is considered the Tanmatras and this thing. So this is something which I took today only. So where the time is considered the 25th element, and when that is added, then the Mahatattva, the Lord impregnates it with the Jivas. And that is, this Mahatattva is also called as Hiranmaya. And this is said to be a very effulgent, combination, cosmic intelligence. And Sattva Guna, which is called Vasudev or Chitta, manifests in the Mahatattva. So these are some things that we saw last time, and we also saw this whole cycle, that how the 10 gross things are created from sound to earth, sound to ether, ether to touch to air, form to fire, taste to water, smell to earth. So this also we had seen last time. And this also we had seen last time, that how the whole connection exists. So that means this was a sutra which the Bhagavatam talks of, that the Lord first desires, when he desires, there is a gross sense organ that he has, and his gross sense organ gives rise to his subtle sense organ, and that gives rise to the sense devata, that gives rise to the tanmatra, and finally the gross element. So though it looks very, tanmatra means the object of the sense. So though it looks a little difficult and technical, a simple example is just like when the Lord desires to taste, then there is, first of all, when he desires to taste, then there is the, the talu which comes up. The talu is the gross tongue. And then there is a subtle tongue which is the jihwa. So the gross tongue is, the gross tongue is considered talu, whereas the subtle tongue, that means the difference is the subtle tongue actually wishes to taste, whereas the gross tongue is just the external entity which is flesh, right? Like we have a tongue, but then our tongue waters. Each of our tongue would water only at a particular moment when we find something attractive, because we have all different desires. So the Lord's sense talu gives rise to the jihva, and then that gives rise to the sense devata, Varuna. So one thing the Bhagavatam very nicely explains is that how the sense object, sense devata, they are all extremely interconnected, and that connection is made at the time of creation itself. Okay, and because it is made at the time of creation, it continues to exist always. So this whole thing is there about all the senses, along with the subtle sense organ, the gross sense organ, the sense devata. So the next one is even more, detailed. So what you see here is a little more detailed idea of the same thing, where every gross sense organ has a subtle sense organ, and that has a sense devata, right? So every gross sense organ, if you see carefully, has a subtle sense, and then there is an associated demigod, which is who the Bhagavatam calls as a sense devata. And these sense devatas are said to be part of Sarga, creation of Vishnu itself. So these seem to be posts or positions which are created in the beginning itself, which actually control that particular entity of that particular sense of every living entity in the universe. So I'll come to this quickly, but I'm kind of I found this something very interesting, that this is spoken by Bhanu Maharaj actually, but he basically, so this is from quantum physics, where he talks of a principle related to non-locality called Bell's theorem. Now just note this theorem. It's a quantum physics law that states that once connected, objects affect one another forever, no matter where they are. So that is what it says. So once that connection is established, no matter where they are, they stay connected. Okay. Following the principles of Bell's theorem, an invisible stream of energy will always connect any two objects that have been connected in any way in the past. That's what these guys talk of. But Bhanu Maharaj uses this particular example to say that the best example of this of this concept is this theorem. The best example of this theorem is actually found in the Bhagavad, where this connection between the sense and the sense devata is made at creation itself. And because it is made at creation itself, it stays. So that sense devata, through that post and position, has actually that control or that access to that particular sense of every living entity in the universe. It's something very interesting that these guys talk about some theorem, but we have a very good example of the theorem that they are actually trying to say. Right? So basically, the idea is that there is no causal connection that can be demonstrated between two entities, but a meaningful relationship nevertheless exists between them. So this is the whole thing. This is also called as synchronicity. So you may not be able to reason out. So these people say in quantum this thing that you cannot give great reasons why it is like that, but still it is there. Still it is there. So people have got Nobel Prize for talking all this stuff. So Nobel Prize winners in physics, these two guys, Wolfgang and Carl Jung, a famous psychologist and psychoanalyst, arrive at the conclusion that simultaneous occurrence of casually unrelated events has meaning beyond mere coincidence. Those events may occur without any reason or respect to existing laws of nature. So they also entertain several such concepts and they talk about it. But we are using these examples to say that the Bhagavatam actually provides you a very powerful case of something like this.
They don't explain it, it's just a hypothesis. Or the theorem they give a proof.
No, it's a theorem, there is a proof for it.
But they don't.
Oh, Bell's theorem to proof hai, but I try to read up also. It's extremely abstract and very difficult to get the concept what they're saying. But because I had heard Bhanu Maharaj speak on this, it became a little more easy for me to understand what these guys are saying.
This is not given to the Vidyapita.
No, this is not from Vidyapita. I have just connected different things here. Okay, so anyway, so Bhanu Maharaj gives a very interesting example. So this is an example of, basically what we can use the example in law of karma.
One question.
Yeah.
What is the need to dig into these theorems?
Why are we digging into?
Why is Bhanu Maharaj digging? What is the need to get into these contemporary facts, whatever we see, and saying, oh, see, we Bhagavatam also speaks.
Yeah, the reason why we need to do that is, we are talking, see, for example, most of us or devotees in general, we preach to so many different kinds of people. And to make our philosophy and our thought processes relevant in some way to a common man, unless you are able to connect, they will just not understand. What to speak of outsiders, even insiders, even people, even all of us, our children or whatever, a society where we live in, we are all going through regular education and curriculum, everything, where you are studying so many things in the name of science. And unless, for example, a child who tomorrow may be learning quantum physics, if he is interested in it, unless he sees a connection, he will feel that these devotees are talking about something and, I am studying something. There is no connection only between the two.
Is this a strong urge to satisfy this here?
It's a strong urge, I believe.
So just to satisfy this strong urge to make a connect, are we forcing things which may not be there? Just this theorem, and then you keep thinking how to connect it to Bhagavatam. We have to figure out one way or the other to connect this to Bhagavatam. Something, let's pick out something to just make a connection. Or it comes very logically.
I heard actually him speaking on this particular thing when he had given a presentation on the connection of, the Devatas controlling us with this as an example. He used this to say that science entertains several concepts which are very similar to what is being spoken here, like that.
It comes very naturally.
Yeah, it comes naturally only. Yeah, you want to say
I
something?
want to share this thing, that quantum physics is very well known for this. Anytime we want to pick up anything we want to connect to Bhagavatam, generally people pick quantum physics. The reason is that there are a lot of things in quantum physics which the scientists have said that it can be only explained by Hindu or Chinese mythology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have written it in the books. So about 10 years back, there was one person. He was doing research, and his research topic was to understand what is the memory model for the interaction between the molecules, because the quantum physics and all these things are already supporting that there is some memory, and they have done a lot of experiments. They are not able to figure out that how the prediction happens. The fundamental particle predicts even before any obstruction comes,
Okay.
and they are saying that this is not possible. There must be some memory. So here in our Rasraj Prabhu and all,
Yeah.
I talked with him. He said that here is the point. We are trying to put one theory called spiriton. Just like electron, proton, we have a spiriton.
Take it close.
Spiriton, and we are actually trying to prove. So they have written ample number of papers, and they are so abstract. But this quantum, as soon as you talk about quantum physics, now actually lot of scientists say that it is beyond our understanding. Normal modern scientists, and they say that only Hindu and Chinese mythology can explain the things which are happening.
Yeah. If you hear Rasraj Prabhu, he works a lot in this thing. So even this Banu, all these people, they talk from that domain.
This we said like Socrates and also these people were jnanis, means they
Madhavi, you can go inside if you wish to.
they could understand certain concepts like soul and all this. They through reasoning and all they understood. That is what Prabhupada says.
Yeah.
So this is also a little bit some conclusions are given. They have understood it in that way.
See, he's saying that basically through reasoning and their own scientific process, they have come up with these kind of theorems and everything. That's what he's saying.
Understanding
They
of
come to some conclusions which they find very difficult to explain. So they leave it over there.
Yeah, they leave it over there, and also if you see a very practical application in personal life, you may not find too much in such domains, right? How do you apply things very practically? So whereas our Shastra talks about it. So Bhanu Maharaj uses this whole thing to talk about astrology and karma. He says that the astrology is basically this quantum mechanics only, because once connected, the idea is that the demigod and your sense are connected. See, the whole idea is how are demigods controlling us? That's the whole question. Like Chandra is controlling our mind. So how is Chandra controlling the mind? Correct? We say, right, in our scripture, the moon controls your mind.
We read Bhagavatam, we don't question only. Chandra controls the mind. You control it.
Yeah, but also,
Bhagavatam doesn't go into the details of how exactly it happens.
so that it does not. That even, that's what, in quantum physics also it does not, it just says that once connected, it stays connected. That's all.
They do not speak because they don't understand. Bhagavatam
Yeah.
they speak because it's not.
It is not important.
It's not important.
No, it is not important as in, what I understand is, whoever needs to know how to do that, he has that knowledge. That's the idea. Everybody doesn't need. There is no means just casual, just for sake of information, nothing is said. But still, all this information is given in the Bhagavatam. That means this whole thing that we are talking, this is elaborated in 5 chapters in the Bhagavatam repeatedly. The sense, the gross sense, the subtle sense, and the sense devata. And last time we discussed this point. Prabhupada says so many things. Prabhupada says, for example, that Udaram is basically feeling of hunger and thirst, and the Samudra Devata controls it. So Prabhupada says, according to Ayurveda, if you have not having adequate hunger and thirst, you are recommended to take bath in the ocean. Because the demigod who controls it, at one level he is a demigod, and at another level there is some physical manifestation of that Devata also, at least in some cases. Like for example, the deities presiding over the rivers, they are called as Nadhya. That's a demigod. But these demigods are manifest physically as rivers. And Prabhupada says that if somebody has problem related to blood and veins, Ayurveda recommends taking bath in river. So that connection is there. Right? So that's what that connection is between the gross sense, the subtle sense, and the demigod, who in some cases manifest like that, like even the moon or the herbs, the Aushadaya demigod is connected like that.
like we can say if we discuss like this, our faith also increases, no? And Prabhupada also says that whatever you.
No, the point is it is given in the Bhagavatam, so there is no question of ignoring that. Because the whole idea is that you can go to Ashraya only when you go beyond this. Yeah. Oh, acha, the connection to science as such, yeah. Yeah, that just depends on the background that one comes from and if one feels. I personally, honestly, whenever I like to hear Srimad Bhagavatam obviously, but at the same time when I hear, devotees talking about that connections as well, it seems to make sense a lot, because otherwise, day in day out we are teaching science and engineering and we deal with so many subjects, but we are actually not able, like for example, I teach computer science, so I read one book of Satyabodh Prabhu where it talks of Turing machine and the connection of that to consciousness. Because I teach Turing machines, that's my topic. So when I understand that connection, it makes a lot of sense to me. Something becomes very relevant actually at that point. So that's how I view the whole thing.
Being a scientist, he knew the scientific world before he came in touch with Prabhupada. He was a scientist.
Yeah.
So he knew all those concepts. When he went through Bhagavatam, he saw that Bhagavatam also explains these
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
Completely right about
Yeah.
it. So that's the motivation and that's how it gets.
Yeah. And also many other people like you and me are also dealing with something. Yeah. Yeah. So let's go ahead now. Yeah. So this whole thing is. So anyway, Bhanu Maharaj gives this very interesting example of karma, which I thought was very interesting. The theory is that, okay, just go through it. On a hot July night of 1930, a policeman called Alan Falvey from Texas got in a car crash and damaged a femoral artery in his leg. He would have bled to death had not a passerby intervened and saved his life. The passerby's name was Alfred Smith. 5 years later, he means that I think Alan Falvey got a call to proceed to a car crash site. There he saw a man lying on the ground. The man was bleeding, his femoral artery was apparently damaged. The man's name was Alfred Smith. He was the very man who had saved Falvey's life in the past under the same circumstances. So he talks about this in the context of karma, to use this as an example. How our law of karma basically says that, when you do something to someone, that comes back in some way. So, that connection is made. He uses this to say that how law of karma makes these connections between two entities. So anyway, I'll not go more beyond this, but this much is enough, I think, for now. Okay, now going more into the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam also presents this important concept. So there are some verses in the Bhagavatam actually that are very significant in terms of their description of Sarga Visarga. So we'll just see some of them. I'll just open my pocket database. 1 second. So in the 3rd canto, in the 26th chapter, text 14. Okay, so in this particular verse, which is there, 3:26:14, it says that the internal subtle senses are experienced as having 4 aspects in the shape of mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness. Distinctions between them can be made only by function, since they represent different characteristics. So the Bhagavatam explains that the subtle body which we have, it is considered one, but it is distinguished in terms of functionalities. That means when we say man, buddhi, ahankar, these are all actually functionalities. So Burijan Prabhu also explains this point based on this particular verse, that these are actually not literally entities, they are all functionalities. There's mind, intelligence, ego, and there is something called contaminated consciousness. So the contaminated consciousness comes originally from consciousness. And the Bhagavatam explains that the Vespa, which we hear, right? Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. They are actually the presiding deities of each of these 4 things. Vasudev is the presiding deity of consciousness, Sankarshan of Ahankar, and Sankarshan's manifestation in this world is Lord Shiva. Like Shiva is always a worshipper of Sankarshan, and Rudra is considered the deity of false ego, right? Like for example, if you see here, the heart. Now see again, this is very interesting. The Bhagavatam calls heart as the gross sense organ. Like many times we say, right, my heart, like for love, for example, people use heart, right? So what is actually heart? So the Bhagavatam calls heart as the gross sense organ, and it says that this gross sense organ has 4 subtle senses. One is the manasa, one is the buddhi, one is the ahankar, and the 4th is the chitta. So all these 4 are considered by the Bhagavatam as subtle senses of your heart.
The brain,
And the brain is not here at all. The brain is Now the brain is actually just treated, it doesn't even come here in the Bhagavatam description. It is basically, it is viewed even from modern perspective as just an entity that helps control all parts of your body. Some part, your hand, your leg and things like that. But that has no role here at all. So it is the heart which is the gross sense which has these four subtle senses. And each subtle sense has one demigod. Like mind we know Chandra, Buddhi is Brahma, false ego is Shiva, and Chitta is Vasudev, which is the Chaitya Guru. That means the Paramatma who is there. He is the Lord of Chitta. He is considered the Lord of consciousness. And not only he is considered the Lord of consciousness, so for Chitta it appears that there is no demigod only who is in charge. So this whole Chitta portfolio is directly maintained by the Lord, where he is only directly looking at consciousness. But for the other three, false ego, intelligence and mind, there is a Supreme Personality of Godhead who is ultimately responsible for it. Like Ahankar is controlled by Sankarshan, mind is controlled by Aniruddha, and Buddhi is actually controlled by Pradyumna. So the Vespa which is there, like we talk, right? Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So they have this entire role in terms of being the presiding deity for these four important functions which are part of our subtle body. But three of them are handed over to these devatas, Shiva, Brahma and Chandra. But Chitta is maintained only by Lord Vasudev directly. So that is how the Bhagavatam describes it.
The Paramatma is an expansion of Lord Vasudev.
Yeah, this Vasudev is called as Chaitya directly. The Bhagavatam clearly says he is only the Paramatma. He is only the Paramatma.
Because the name also suggests very vast sab jagah hai usko Vasudev.
Oh really? That's what Vasudev means in some way? Jiska vas sab jagah hai. Perhaps. Yeah. So then the Bhagavatam talks about, the functions of Chitta. Again, the Chitta, it's elaborated a lot actually. It says that real Chitta is to experience serenity, clarity and freedom from distraction. So the Bhagavatam explains that if any of us, we can take our consciousness to this level of being serene, clear and free from distraction, we have achieved clear consciousness. As long as our consciousness is not having these three properties of being serene, having clarity and being freed from distraction, it is considered to be contaminated consciousness.
Satya Chitta Ananda Chitta consciousness.
नहीं वो नहीं
वो soul का symptom जो बोलते हैं ना,
सच्चिदानंद.
that expansion of the soul is consciousness creates all over the body. This is the same thing.
Yeah, that consciousness. But their chit is knowledge. No, that is not that.
Shiro Lakshay also is with that. He expresses.
Yeah, perhaps he is only the Vasudeva, whatever. So here it is. Yeah. So similarly, Buddhi has its own functions, which the Prabhupada explains these things in great detail actually. The functions of Buddhi: doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory. In fact, whenever, what was his name? Whenever Makanlal Prabhu was there, he was also talking in terms of how, Vijnanamaya Kosh to awaken children or anyone in general has to awaken these faculties of intelligence. Correct apprehension, misapprehension, to understand rightly ascertaining the nature of any object that comes, having good memory and sleep. These are considered functions of buddhi or intelligence. And when all these things are there, our intelligence is said to be rightly situated. Prabhupada emphasizes the purport of our sleep. He says that having good sleep is an important sign to be intelligent. If someone doesn't sleep well, his intelligence will not function well. And we can see that also because when we don't sleep well, our ability to ascertain any object in front of us is not very powerful. We tend to be a little weak in general. So sleep is considered a function of intelligence. So these are considered functions. Having the right doubts is also considered functions of intelligence. So these are all considered functions of intelligence. And the ruling deity for this is actually Pradyumna. But in this world, Brahma takes over that portfolio. But interestingly, Chitta is maintained by the Lord only. He has not handed over that portfolio to anybody. He has kept it with himself. Right? And then of course senses and other things come up. Okay, then move ahead. Yeah, so this also I had seen last time, but we are again briefly reviewing this diagram today. The soul is Satchidananda and the same thing. So basically all this is, so the Bhagavatam says that there is Sandhini, Samvit and Ladini Shakti in the spiritual world. And these three manifest as everything else in this world. Like the soul is Satchidananda, the Sat is the Sandhini, Chit is the Samvit, and Ananda is part of the Ladini. Similarly, the Dravya Kriya Jnana. Dravya is considered Sandhini because that's existing. Like matter exists in the world. Whereas Kriya is considered Samvit because in Kriya there is intelligence. You think why to do something. And Jnana is considered Ladini because real knowledge gives rise to happiness. So,
Ladini Shakti is Radharani.
yeah,
And Sandhini is Balram.
Balram. Samvit is also considered Balram only, a knowledge. Right? So the same three are considered. So I think we had spoken about all this last time. I'll just emphasize on one thing which is the goal of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam's goal is, in this world, whatever we see is either Dravya, Kriya or Jnana. That means either it is objects, or it is senses, or it is knowledge. So the Bhagavatam's goal is to tell us that try to use all your objects in connection to Krishna, use all your senses and endeavor in connection to Krishna, or understand how Krishna consciousness works. That means even if one understands how Krishna consciousness works, that means like our hearing paddhati which is there, sitting and hearing a class, where basically what we are doing is we are trying to understand how Krishna consciousness is working. So that is also considered in that same line. Anyway, so these were some lessons. This also we had seen already last time, so I'll just go over it very quickly. Where difference between reflection. So we had seen this part last time. I'm not going. The one most important thing last time we saw was ego is considered the key switch because it is from ahankar that everything has come up. So if you switch the ahankar, then one goes back to the spiritual world. And then we had also seen this whole thing, connection between Big Bang and Srimad Bhagavatam, where we had seen that how, right? So this we had seen last time. So I'm not going into that again. Prabhupada on Big Bang, etc. Okay, so now we'll start with actually this, at this point only we start with the today's topic. So, so I've just taken some verses to show some important themes in this whole creation process. So we are just going to 3rd canto, chapter 5, text 38. Yeah, so the Bhagavad, so after all the basic ingredients or elements are created by the Lord, it is said that all these devatas who are created, that means these devatas who control the senses, they all pray to the Lord basically by saying that in this particular verse 3:5:38, they pray saying that we are unable to perform our duties because we are not related to each other. That means the idea is, the Lord creates all the elements and all the senses, but they are all not mixed. They are all in the unmixed form. And because they are not mixed really, the demigods say that we are unable to really relate to each other. So for example, there is one demigod in charge of eye, then another demigod in charge of ear. Imagine, now in our system, the eye and ear, everything is connected right in one system. So the Bhagavatam explains, initially when the Lord creates all these elements, like eyes, the ear, the demigod for the eye, demigod for the ear, that position of control. But these demigods are not able to do anything because they see that all these elements are unmixed. So who's going to mix them up really? So the Bhagavatam focuses on this a lot. The Bhagavatam focuses that on every step, the Lord actually intervenes. So basically, after this prayer is offered by the demigods, in fact, they offer an entire chapter only of prayers. So sometimes we will see one chapter of prayers where demigods offering prayers, and most of us get very tired looking at that long list of prayers itself. We wonder, my God, how am I going to read this? But the purpose of that prayer is this, in this context. The demigods are saying, we created us, that's fine, but we just don't know how to relate to each other. So then, in the next chapter, after the whole prayers are offered, Lord Karnodaksha Vishnu or Mahavishnu, he sees that all this creation is suspended because of non-combination of elements. That means all elements are created, but they are not combining. So nothing is happening. So he sends the Kali potency or the cohesive energy. So the Lord has this particular energy called cohesive energy which amalgamates all elements. So then only things come together. And how things come together? Things come together in his own form. So basically the Bhagavatam explains that the Lord, all the demigods prayed that, we are unable to do anything. So his energy enters these elements, and then all the jivas, who want bodies, they are all in the dormant state and the elements get combined. And then this Virat Rupa comes into existence. So this Virat Rupa is the cosmic form, where there is a body of the Lord that comes up. So the elements combine in a fetus where all lokas and everything exists. So the Virat Rupa lives on water for about 1,000 celestial years till Brahma's birth. Then only the Lord enters as Garbhodaksha Vishnu and divides himself. So the whole point is that though the Lord creates all these elements, but because they are all unmixed, nothing happens. So the Lord only enters the universe as Virat Rupa, and there is a form, a material form of the Lord with all these senses which are now integrated in one system. So that is the basic prototype from which all other prototypes come out. Like all of our bodies and all, where we have senses and we have a body where all our senses are all integrated right here. So the Bhagavatam saying is that the Lord had to do that to get a material form himself. So when he does that, and when that Virat Rupa is generated, and then he has to create all these things also. So of course, these three we had already seen, Adhyatma, Adi Bhuta, Adi Deva. But then there is this whole concept of 10 life wares, Prana Shakti. Because Prana Shakti is considered the energy for our working senses, like our hands, legs, voice, etc. It is a Prana Shakti that actually, motivates and pushes everything. So this Prana Shakti is considered as 10 from Prana, Apana, and the Bhagavatam in detail, in every verse it mentions what every life ware is meant for. What is the function of every life ware in the body? Like one is for the breathing, what we call. Apana is for the rectum as evacuated body layer. Samana adjusts food in stomach. Udana is through the throat. Stoppage constitutes suffocation. Vyana is the total air circulating the body. Naga facilitates opens of eyes, mouth. Krikara increases appetite. Kurma helps contraction. Devadatta helps relaxation by opening the mouth in yawning. Dhananjaya helps sustenance. So basically the Bhagavatam explains all. So these life wares are said to be created at this point, which are all integrated in that Virat Rupa, of the Lord. So once it is integrated, then again the Bhagavatam mentions that okay, when the Virat Rupa is
In Bhagavatam, it is also mentioned that this Virat Rupa is also imaginary. Like in second canto,
yeah.
there is a description there which says that actually Virat Rupa is nothing but it is secondary and it is just imaginary. And those things also I have heard many places.
Yeah, actually there are 2-3 types of Virat Rupa. One is the Virat Rupa in terms of, the mountains being his bones. That description. The mountains being his bones, right? That means in terms of the planets, in terms of which planet is on which part of the body of the Lord, from Patala to his feet till Brahmaloka. So that is generally considered as imaginary, but here it doesn't seem like that in this whole description. If you see in description, because it's very clearly mentioned here that the sense demigods are unable to perform anything. That is why this Virat Rupa comes up, so that everything is first integrated in his own system. And when that happens, so he is considered an avatar of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, this Virat Purush, which in this context. So there are several Virat Purushas actually the Bhagavatam discusses. That's another one. The second canto one which talks about, right? That's what you're talking about, right? Yeah, that's considered, yeah, Prabhupada says also, no? That is imaginary. Yeah, but here it is considered, here it is considered as that aspect of the Lord which integrated all these elements in one system, without which nothing would have happened ahead, without which nobody would have got a body where our senses are all integrated and connected to one another. So the Lord had to first take such a role basically. And then the Bhagavatam, this is a very poetic kind of description in 3:26, 62 to 69. So all these devatas are there, they're very happy that this Virat Purusha has come up now. So basically every devata, as you know, in that list of 14-15 devatas, they're connected to every sense. So they all enter that sense and try to wake up the Virat Purusha. But Virat Purusha doesn't wake up. And finally in text 70 it says that when Vasudev, when he enters the heart, then only the Virat Purusha rises. So the whole idea is that prana, mind and intelligence cannot wake up a sleeping soul without intervention of the super soul. So the super soul is considered the most important thing in any body, without which nothing will function. So even though all the other demigods are there, as long as the Paramatma is not there, nothing is going to happen. So the Bhagavatam concludes that whole description with the role of the Paramatma here. Yeah. So now the Bhagavatam basically says that there are 6 types of creation. So the Bhagavatam says that the Sarga and Visarga put together, there are actually 10 hierarchies of creation, 10 levels of creation, where the first 6 are considered primary creation, which is Sarga, which is performed by Lord himself, and the remaining 4 are called as Visarga, which is performed by Brahmaji. So that part we will see. So the first 6, which are all done by the Lord only, is the Mahat Tattva, creation of all the elements, Ahankar, the sense objects, right? The senses, the Devas, demigod and mind. That means, that whole connection, demigods, the 14 demigods and the mind, and then Tamas. So these 6 things are considered as initial creation, and that the first 5 we have already discussed. Only the 6th thing remain to be discussed, Tamas or ignorance. So that means the idea is that the Lord initially creates all ingredients, and then he also creates ignorance, because without ignorance none of us can be happy in this world for the purpose for which we have come. We want ignorance by, in general. So the Bhagavatam in 2 places it mentions this ignorance. So there are actually, what I am mentioning here is 2 lists of ignorance, layers of ignorance, which the Bhagavatam speaks in 3.12.2. But these are also there in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. So the Patanjali Yoga Sutras talk about 5 kinds of suffering, and Bhagavatam talks about 5 kinds of ignorance, and they are all actually correlated. Like for example, the Bhagavatam talks about the first layer of ignorance. So this is this creation, Tamas, right? That means this Tamas is produced by the Avidya Shakti to make the living entity, who is actually Prabhu, act as a fool. Because without Avidya, we will not act like a fool. And without acting like a fool, our purpose to come to this world will not be served. So we have to act foolishly. So in order to act foolishly, the Lord has created 5 levels of ignorance. The first level is called Tamas, which is to forget one's spiritual identity. That's the first thing. We have to forget who we are. Second is to identify with material nature, thinking soul to be the body. That is Moha. Then Mahamoha is to develop a false sense of ownership for things offered by nature. Then there is Tamishra. When there is an obstruction to the enjoyment, we become angry. And finally, when we become very angry, and there is Andha Tamishra, a struggle for existence, fearing death. So these are like 5 layers of ignorance. And the beauty is that Patanjali talks about 5 layers of suffering called Avidya, ignorance, Asmita, false identity, Raga, attachment, Dvesha, repulsion, and Abhinivesha, fear of death. So he says here, it is interesting to note that this comparison provides another kind of definition altogether. Since the elements of Ajnana and Klesha match, it is implicit that Ajnana, ignorance, is equal to Klesha, suffering. Therefore, ignorance has been directly equated with suffering. You understood? So this ignorance is considered the first level of actually suffering. So that's how the connection is. So the Bhagavatam speaks of. So the idea is that the Lord creates this ignorance so that we can actually, so because that's what we wanted. We want to, just imagine, for the soul to come to this world and to forget who he is and start taking very seriously, the body, and identify with it and develop attachment, want proprietorship, become angry when it is taken away, and then become finally totally mad and, become like, start fearing death. It's a lot, right? So the Lord has to create that ignorance so that we actually identify very strongly with all this. So these are considered, this is considered the 6th type of creation. So there are 10 levels of creation. So these were the first 5 which we had dealt last time. This is the 6th, which is called as Tamas. Yeah.
Demigods are the creation. So demigods also
have, it's a part of creation. So do they also have the ignorance thing with them? Because living entities are not the part of this creation.
Yeah, I understood. Correct. Yeah, of course they have. We'll come to that very soon.
But they are.
Yeah, we'll come to that. It's coming now next. So we'll come to his question. So now the thing is, after these 6 types of creation are done by Lord Vishnu, then Brahmaji comes up. At this point, Brahmaji comes actually. And Brahmaji comes and he does only 4 types of creation, which is called Visarga. So it's 4 types of creation are creating plants, creating lower species. Lower species means not only animal, everything else. Insect and everything. All those things. Human beings and 8 types of devatas. So this is considered the work of Brahmaji. And in order to do this, the prototype is already set up. That means the Lord has already ensured that, all the elements are there. And not only all the elements are there, how they are supposed to be connected and how which sense is supposed to be controlled by which demigod. So all those things are already in place. So then based on that, Brahmaji does his own creation. Again, so many times, people ask all questions that people ask, are kind of answered in the Bhagavatam. Like for example, many times so many people ask, do plants feel pain, etc. So the Bhagavatam says that plants consciousness is not evident. They feel pain, but it's very clearly, if you read all the verses, it is very clear that the pain felt is very meager because consciousness is not prominently there in plants. Then the Bhagavatam explains about animals, saying animal means any entity. If you see the definition, no concept of future and no deliberation, preoccupied with eating and sleeping, understand needs by smell. So these are characteristic of animal. That means any creature which is happy by eating and sleeping is called as animal. So Prabhupada writes very nice purport to all those set of verses. Prabhupada says that even a wild animal like tiger can be tamed simply by supplying food regularly and making arrangement for sleeping and mating. If this much is there, an animal is satisfied. But a human is not supposed to be satisfied. Because human has this thing called deliberation. So deliberation is something very powerful. That means the whole concept of... So that's why, those who are... Actually, many times if you observe the world around us also, you will see that people who are more like animal or, means in that level, just simply by getting rosy roti, they are happy actually. That means a human being is not supposed to be happy. Just by getting 2 square meals and filling the belly, if somebody feels that his goal is achieved, then that is considered animalistic. Because you are not willing only to deliberate on higher issues of life. So animals have these characteristics. So human characteristics also very interesting. Human characteristic, one characteristic which is said as passionate. So human is considered, because he is passionate, human is considered to be the most unregulated. The Bhagavatam explains that all animals have at least fixed patterns of eating, sleeping, defending, but human, no. He is considered passionate, he is dedicated to work, and human is one creature, the Bhagavatam says, who thinks himself happy even in distress. That means in any condition he adjusts himself and he finds pleasure in it. That's human. Manushya. And only one type. That means basically the human species is considered just one. Like demigods are 8, animals are several, plants are several. Physical. In terms of consciousness. The Manushya Jati, whatever. Yeah, but I think that 4 lakh includes even Brahmaji. It is from Brahmaji to me. They are not coming under Manushya category. Human being category, they are not there. Brahma is not... One second. If you see that 84 lakh, Chatur Lakshani Manavaha, that Manavaha includes even the demigods. That includes the demigods. There it says Manava, but that Manava is not equal to the human beings that we are talking. You understood, na? That in all the Indra, Chandra, Vayu, Varuna, Agni, they are all included in the Chatur Lakshani Manava. But here they are not counted here.
It is based on consciousness, that is based on 3 gunas. Mixing of the 3 gunas. That one.
But that is also based on consciousness, where all these demigods are there, na? Like Pitras, Asuras, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Nagas, Siddhas, Charanas, वो सब है वो गिनती में 4 लाख के. वो सब है. लेकिन यहाँ पर नहीं है ना, ये ह्यूमन बीइंग मतलब हमारे बारे में बात कर रहे हैं.
One type means what way? Here plants are of different varieties.
Yeah. One second, I'll just go to that verse only, na, directly. Because there's so many material, even I kind of a little bit. I think this is 3:10:18. 1 second.
This eating and sleeping is just 2 words are taken. It includes other 2 also. Mating and defending.
Yeah, it of course does. Maybe I'll just try that later. I'll find out that. I just have to look. I'm not. No, this is in terms of horizontal nourishment, vertical, upward nourishment, like plants from root, like that.
And where is the planets and all coming up in the creation?
Planets.
No. Currently, I'm only focusing on the human beings and the senses. That's a whole separate presentation. We'll have to see in that. No, that also comes originally from the Lord. Yeah.
So they should have planets and mountains and land and river, everything.
Acha, you're talking about the actual space and everything, right? Yeah, so that, I'll tell you 1 second. That would come. Actually, I think, I understood. So in this particular creation, where the focus is on the creation of the living entity. Of the matter is there. That is also there. That is also spoken parallelly. But I am not even touching that part. No, not 5th canto. 3rd canto mein hai wo. Planet ka bhi bata hai.
That is Visarga part, na?
Yeah, Visarga only. That comes in Visarga. So here the main focus is 10 types of creation of living beings. Means it comes at that. Yeah, and the demigods are of 8 types. Of course, I think one type is not here. It didn't get scanned. I think that is Kim Purusha or something. So one more type is there. So they are called 8 types of Devatas. So all this is created by him. So yeah. So these are considered as secondary creation. Where Brahmaji basically creates all these other living species. Okay. And it's called secondary because the main prototype is already created by Lord Vishnu. And Brahmaji is only kind of doing the further job in it. Yeah, and now, so this is something very interesting. So, it also talks about Brahma's various manifestations and various lessons to learn from that. We just go over some of them. So, for example, the Bhagavatam says that Yakshas and Rakshasas are created from the shadow of Brahmaji. So, basically there are 3 things here in this table. That means, who is created and from which part of Brahmaji did this entity come up? And which position they occupy in the world. So, we will see some relevance very quickly. So, for example, Yakshas and Rakshasas come from the shadow, and the position they occupy is basically night. And at night, they manifest as hunger and thirst. That means at night, they increase the hunger and thirst of everyone. So, from this, we also understand that is the reason why Shastra or tradition generally recommends, culture recommends that one doesn't remain awake at night. One does not remain awake at night. Like sometimes in many languages they say also like a bhoot or pishach, you are sitting at night to do something. Because at night to sit is like becoming a yaksha or rakshas, sitting like that. And generally at night time it is said if you keep sitting, you tend to feel more hungry and thirsty also, and you will just keep eating, drinking. And we see that also nowadays, so many young people, whole night they sit and they keep eating and drinking. Like many times I come for DT worship from my home at 4 o'clock when 4:30 we leave. All the hotels below my home are actually open. There's a whole party going on down. And I understand that basically whole night these boys and girls have been awake, eating, drinking and doing all that. Drinking means coffee, tea, cigarette, samosa at 4:35. So the Shastra recommends. And in fact, if you see, culture in India was such that at night time nobody would do this. Actually nowadays we are not very... Actually, this electricity is considered a cause actually of this staying up awake at night. Otherwise, traditionally it is said that before the advent of electricity at sunset in every civilization people would go to sleep because nothing to do. But electricity caused all the problem. And if you see, we see Chaitanya Charitamrita also, there is one story of Pradyumna Mishra where Pradyumna Mishra goes to Ramananda Rai to hear about Krishna. He says that I have come, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sends him, he says, go to Ramananda Rai and hear Krishna Katha. So when Pradyumna Mishra comes to the house of Ramananda Rai is doing something, he is decorating those Devidasis to, dance and all that. And then after all that is over, he comes back and then he says, now it has become late. So the servant, the servant comes and says, the day has ended. The day has ended means the sun has set right now. And Pradyumna Mishra says, I'm very sorry. So Ramananda Rai says, we'll have to meet tomorrow now. We can't do anything right now. I mean, it's a very subtle hint, but you can catch that over there and understand that people in those times did not violate the biological nature's law by simply staying up at night foolishly. They would just wind up. Of course, it was a very exceptional thing when Mahaprabhu would dance all night and all, but that is not considered the norm. So you see that actually. Ramananda Rai's servant comes and says the sun is already set right now. So Ramananda Rai says, Pradyumna Mishra, I think we'll have to talk on Krishna Katha tomorrow. Right now we can't do anything. The sun is set, so the day is over. So that was tradition. Mahabharata war, yeah. The evening they would stop, except the 14th day. Yeah, you have a question?
Even in Ayurveda, I have read that
Ayurveda?
Yeah, even in Ayurveda, it is mentioned that drinking water at night is equivalent to drinking blood, and eating food in night is equivalent to eating flesh.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can quote give you the verse also. After sunset.
After sunset, yeah.
Yeah.
The Bhagavad, that's what, when I read this section, it was very clear. See, many times we see, why is Bhagavatam talking about this? Bhagavatam is talking about this because of that thing, Of course, at least for a night we will understand midnight, not sitting at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock and eating and drinking. That's not considered generally good. That's considered, negative. So similarly, okay, let's go ahead. Of course, demigods are considered coming from Brahma's goodness and they represent the day. So that is the time when one is supposed to work and do things. Yeah, this is interesting. From the buttocks of Brahmaji comes the demons. The buttocks of Brahmaji comes the demons, and the place they are given, the sthana, is the twilight hour. Because the twilight hour is the time when, so all these kind of emotions get awakened. And that's why we see that in all traditions at that particular Sandhya time, one is supposed to do Gayatri, one is supposed to light a lamp at home. One is supposed to do all that. Because that will ensure that you don't fall prey to this particular thing, the demonic tendencies. Yes, this place inside, you can come and sit if you wish to. बहुत जगह यहाँ खाली है actually. So, right? So this connection which is there is not like, there are many things, like Prabhupada says, laziness. Brahmaji's laziness gives birth to bhutas and pishachas. Yeah, you can sit down there, no problem. Bhutas and pishachas, and the place where they are given to reside is impure persons. So Prabhupada explains, quoting some reference, that when some spit is coming down, like when drool, drool, right? Sometimes when you are sleeping, some saliva drips down. That is considered extremely impure. And the Shastra, and Prabhupada writes over there, that if something like that has happened to us, it is one's duty to immediately clean up. But if one allows that contamination to stay, then that place is taken immediately by bhutas and pishachas. Because why would one allow that contamination to stay? Out of laziness. You understood? So there's a connection actually. If you read the Bhagavatam, this is actually in 3rd canto, 20th chapter. If you read that whole chapter, you will see a very strong connection between these three things. Brahmaji is part of body which produces some being and which place he is given. So, so the Bhagavatam's goal is to tell us that if you want to avoid these creatures, you will have to avoid this situation, because this situation comes from this mindset, and in this mindset this situation comes, and there these people come and sit. That's the idea. Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah. Right, makes sense. So, okay, sorry. I was not speaking into the mic only. Yeah. Okay. Since you came from out, you basically understood that perhaps. Correct? So, that's how this whole connection is. So again, we can see this also. This buttocks thing is elaborated in great detail actually, 23 to 29. Where these demons come and they chase Brahmaji only, for their appetite. And then Brahmaji has to really run and, Brahmaji falls in a lot of trouble actually. And then he gives up that body and so on and so forth. So there are so many things also, like for example, like I remember when this Bhaktivikas Maharaj had once come to Kujibihari temple, there was one devotee sitting right in front of him in the Vyasasan. And what he did is, he put his finger in his mouth or nose. Something very natural, sometimes we do it. Mouth he put. So immediately Bhaktivikas Maharaj told him that first you have to wash your hand. Because in fact, you not believe, there is one story of Prabhupada that I read also. Where Prabhupada was awarding initiation ceremony, and in one corner of the initiation ceremony, there was one mother and a child, small child, and some jhuta kind of thing happened over there, and Prabhupada actually stopped the process to tell her to clean and come, otherwise he said that the whole ceremony can get affected potentially. So even though it's a mother and child, and it's generally assumed that a child is going to be, you know, at that time unclean. So that's but still, when a yajna is going on, such an entity cannot be, such a person cannot be sitting there who would invite these kind of inauspicious creatures. So that is why, that is why the, you know, various etiquette in eating, cleaning, being clean. Actually, sometimes we have, our concepts of cleanliness are very strange, or we are not very clear about things. I remember once, you know, with one devotee, just before his initiation, he had asked me, Prabhuji, क्या करना है दीक्षा के पहले? I said, नया ड्रेस तो पहनना पड़ेगा, नया धोती और अंगवस्त्र. So he got new. And then what he did was, you know, he washed. I told him that, he asked me, धोना पड़ेगा? तो मैंने धोना तो पड़ेगा, because new is considered starched, is considered impure. So he washed it. And then after washing it, he gave it to his dhobi to iron. And then he told me, Prabhuji, धो के मैंने अच्छे से इस्त्री करवा के लिए. ऐसे किया कि करवा के लिए? ऐसे नहीं करवा के लिए. मेरे को तो सब गया. क्योंकि that person who does इस्त्री in our area is a बीड़ी smoker. So I said, okay, office pant shirt ठीक है भाई, वो तो contaminated जगह जा रहे हैं definition. लेकिन अभी दीक्षा के लिए आपने इतने मेहनत से धो के वो उसको दे दिया आयल करने के लिए, आपको नया लेना पड़ेगा वापस. इसे ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, वापस ले तो. He took another धोती है लगा वस्त्र. So sometimes our concept of cleanliness is not very clear. You know, sometimes I have observed this also in some houses, devotees houses sometimes, that you know, the maid the maid is in charge of folding clothes, let's say, and she takes all the clothes from the cloth line, puts it on the bed, and takes it one by one to fold it. Now, actually, from the Shastra perspective, if you see, that's considered extreme impure. Now, many times what happens when we hear all this, we feel, our devotee is supposed to follow all this. But if you see Prabhupada, he was extremely heavy with these kind of things, with his servants and people who were in his close vicinity. When they violated anything, he just fired them left, right, saying, Mlecha Shudra, you are coming from such a background, you will never understand in 10,000 lifetimes. He would just spontaneously fire them out. You know, there are so many things, like if you see Harishwari Prabhu's Transcendental Diary, you see so many chastisements for things which perhaps most of us will consider extremely normal. You know, like Harishwari Prabhu with a spoon, he is eating some fruit, and you know, and then he just touches his dhoti to do it like this, and then Prabhupada says the whole dress only is contaminated. You eat and you're thinking that with a spoon when you eat, you're still pure. It is not like that. You're unclean only. So the reason behind that is this. The reason is here, that Brahmaji's various creations. Now, it is very interesting. This part I like the best, because impurity is maintained in our system because of laziness. That's just one thing we're focusing on. Because that means when Brahmaji's laziness came bhutas and pishachas, and they can attack impure people. Because impurity comes from laziness. So like that, all these connections are there actually. Yeah. Diti, yeah, when she's doing that, not to be impure. Yeah. Yeah.
Undercoming this only?
Yeah, perhaps maybe, I don't know. We'll have to find out why they are haunted by a ghost. But the idea is that if you are impure, Pishacha can attack you. That's the concept. That is the Bhagavad concept. If you are impure out of laziness, Bhutas and Pishachas can dwell in your system. That's the thing. That's the concept here. They can attack. Basically, negative energy attacks us. That's the idea. So we understand from this. So, yeah, beauty, Gandharvas and Apsaras and moonlight. Again, we see, you know, all Bollywood songs are all Chandni and, you know, Ye Chand Ka Tukda, all that stuff, right? Somehow, beauty and moonlight is some way connected. I don't know how. Not that these people read Bhagavatam, but still they connected it. Because that connection is there. That means Gandharvas and Apsaras were created from Brahma's beauty, and the position they are given is in moonlight. So that's why that Chandni Raat is supposed to be extremely beautiful, because that's how it is. The creation has made it that way, right? Yeah, Krishna also dances. And so there are many things actually, and from his own form. Now this is again something interesting. We can talk about all these, but each of these we can talk. But I am just talking about some of them. From his own form, Manu was created, and sacrificial actions will be established. That means where sacrifice is going on, there is Manushya, Manu. That means that is why Manushya means one who has to always do sacrifices. Because that is the place of residence for Manu and his descendants. That is why there in those purports, Prabhupada explains that human being means to do sacrifices. Because you have come from Manu, and the place, you have come from Brahmaji's mind, his own form, and the place you are given is to do sacrifice. So like that, all these connections are there. So yeah, so that's again, at least 2-3 I liked very much. I liked this demons, buttocks and twilight, because it's a fact that, you know, they are all connected in some way. And this laziness, bhuta pishacha, impure person, and his own mind, Manu, and sacrificial ceremonies. Right?
Here, is there anything upper, lower, like demigods are higher than?
Yeah, demigods are higher only. Why not?
No, here it is in a own form.
No, that is fine. But it is in fact that the Bhagavatam says here that the human being is considered inferior to all demigods, including yakshas, rakshasas, nagas, bhutas, pretas, pishachas. All are considered superior to humans in terms of their position.
They are demigods. The last category.
Yeah, they are all considered, and Devata means they are considered higher beings from our perspective. In this context, Devata means higher being.
But when we talk, many times we say that those who get this kind of form is they have misused the body.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. They are higher in the sense they have a higher position. Bhuvar Loka is the place where they stay. You are staying in Bhuloka. So they are staying in Bhuvar Loka. And they can possess us, but we can't possess them. So in terms of power, influence, location, they are considered superior to us. They are not given any portfolio as such. I mean, they are not like Indra Chandra Vayu. They are very inferior, higher beings. They are higher from our perspective. Yeah. Yeah.
They can influence us.
Yeah, they can influence us. So they are considered higher. And they're located also geographically higher than you and me. Yeah.
Why they are in demigods category?
No, here that's what I said, na Prabhuji. Demigod here means that someone is of a higher being who has a power. It doesn't mean that they are portfolio wala demigod nahi ho. Means they have portfolio means their portfolio is this only. Wherever uncleanliness is there, come and sit over there. Unko power diya hua hai, wo jaake baitho. So karmically they are inferior, but at that point they are given. Yeah.
Characteristics why they are not given, like we say downward nourishment, passion, उनका क्या है?
वो दिया हुआ रहेगा, मैंने लिखा नहीं है यहाँ पर. Means I have not put it here. Huh?
How they look
Yeah, it is there. Why? We are not going into that now. Yeah, it's there, it's there. Yeah, the Bhagavata mentions how these people live and form and how they look like. I don't remember. We'll have to look at that. Okay, so this is one thing. There's another. So then this is another interesting. So this is a continuation of this Brahma's manifestation and lessons to learn. So this is also very interesting. So Brahma's 10 sons, they come from different parts. And the most significant thing is that among his sons, Narada comes from his deliberation. So this again the Bhagavatam highlights a lot, and Prabhupada also highlights a lot on this. That deliberation, deliberation. So we had spoken about deliberation when you weren't there. Deliberation basically came, where did deliberation come? इसके पहले आया था यहाँ पर. हाँ, only human beings can deliberate. In that context I had spoken deliberation, where animals cannot. Deliberate as in really think in great detail about why you are here, what is your existence meant for. You know, to ask those questions. Atato Brahma Jignasa. That is the deliberation. Yeah, and that deliberation, the best product of Brahma's deliberation is Narada Muni. And he stands for that. And other demigods, other sages are coming from different parts of Brahmaji. They have their own role. Again, the religion comes from Brahma's heart and irreligion comes from his back. In several places, you know, the back part of the body is considered as, in some way, as irreligious. You know, that's considered the source of irreligion, and that's also equated with death. In fact, if you remember the Onisha connection also, the anus and that part is connected to the demigod called as Mrityu. And you know, this Mitra and Mrityu, they are the demigods who are in charge of that. And according to our Indian philosophy and understanding, the soul, if it is very sinful, it has to live through those parts, which is extremely painful. And the more the soul is evolved, he lives through the higher holes in the body. So this part is considered extremely irreligious. And it is very interesting that in today's world, if you see, you know, generally those parts of the body are considered, you know, that's what all these media and everything really, you know, try to highlight in movies and, you know, all this type of media. They focus a lot on the lower part of a person's body, which is considered actually irreligious. That's it. And factors which instigate adharma, lust and desire from the heart, anger between the eyebrows. So that means this anger quality comes between the eyebrows of the Lord. And we see that also when a person becomes angry, immediately his eyebrows have to, bend in some way. Greed is from the lips. Power of speaking mouth, ocean, penis, low and abominable activity, ain is the source of sins. So basically the various things are said. Now we'll come to I think this is perhaps the last slide. I'll end with this soon. Yeah. So as I was telling in the beginning that there are two types of creation, Sarga and Visarga. So there is Sarga which is of Lord Vishnu and Visarga is of Brahmaji. So now the lessons that we are putting here, the main lesson is that the difference between Vishnu and Brahmaji. That Vishnu, though he creates, he is never bound by anything that he creates. Whereas Brahmaji, in many ways, he gets bound. So you are asking me the question, right? Whether demigods fall prey to some lower tendencies. Yeah, that danger is there.
Here also demigod was there, here also it was there. In that also you mentioned.
No, the sense devatas are created by the Lord, Vishnu.
Okay, those are
Yeah, and other demigods are created by Brahmaji. This original set of demigods are created by Vishnu only, those positions. Because that position is connected. See, that's what we have to appreciate the point. When the sense is created, only the sense demigod has to be created. Otherwise, their connection will never be there. So they are created together before Brahmaji's birth only.
they are higher than the box.
It's not a question of higher or lower. Brahmaji is also part of those 14. Brahmaji is also created.
Whether they get affected.
That's what we are talking now. They do get affected. Brahmaji only gets affected. That's what the Bhagavatam says. The reason is that only Vishnu can create something and be unaffected. So Vishnu is considered, like last time I gave the example of a spider who creates a web and who can walk on the web but who is never bound in the web. And he can wind up the web also. But nobody else can do that. So Brahmaji, the Bhagavatam explains, so this is a beautiful this thing. So I'll just read this verse. So this is the place where, it is highlighted about Brahmaji's troubles with the creation. So there are 2-3 things mentioned, but I'll take this verse. So the sensitivity there is very amazing. So in 3:12:28, this is a verse which is being spoken by Maitreya. So he says, "O Vidura, we have heard that Brahma had a daughter named Vak who was born from his body and who attracted his mind towards her, although she was not inclined towards him." You understood? So Brahmaji chased his own daughter in this particular. And the beauty is the Bhagavatam, Maitreya says, we have heard. So Acharyas give a lot of commentary on this, saying that why they have say like that, we have heard. Because they say like that because they don't want to, because they're very careful not to offend Brahmaji over here. Though they want to point out the dangers of the demigods also, what they land in, the trouble they land in. But because Brahmaji is a very respectable personality, they don't want to say that we know for sure that it happened with Brahmaji. Rather, they say that we have heard that something like that happened. They're saying like that with great caution, fearing any offense that will come by, if they just make a blanket statement that we know that it happened. So that's why they say that. But this is the series of verses that explain that even all the demigods can get potentially caught up. Because other than Vishnu, nobody else can be free in that web of Maya, including the Devatas. Brahmaji is also originally created only, from them. Brahmaji can become bound by his own creation, but the Lord as spider does not. So similarly, the Bhagavatam says, we also have to be careful with our own little creations. Whatever we create, our own small family, our house, our furniture, our stuff, we get attached to it because we are not Vishnu. And now there is a lot of lessons to learn from Marichi and his sons. Brahmaji's sons headed by Marichi, they respectfully spoke to him, the Bhagavatam says in the next few verses, saying that, see, what you are doing is not correct. We please plead you to focus on your intelligence again. But they failed to dissuade Brahmaji, so they began to pray to the Supreme Lord, saying that, hey Bhagavan, aap hi kuch karo. Please change his mind. And then the Bhagavatam finally concludes saying that Brahmaji comes to his senses and then he gives up that body. Brahmaji could do that, give up that body and accept a new body, basically. So Brahmaji does that, and Prabhupada emphasizes that somebody who falls to such acts, his only atonement is to give up his body. But the interesting thing is the 6 sons of Marichi, then Brahmaji's grandchildren, they start laughing at Brahmaji and they paid a price. What is the price that they paid? Anyone knows? As Vasudev's and Devaki's sons, yeah. So that was the punishment. So see, so that's why there is a difference between Marichi and Marichi's sons. Marichi, it is said, very respectfully told Brahmaji. He only said it, but he said very respectfully. Whereas Marichi's sons, they just laughed. And for that laughing, they paid a price. So the Bhagavatam makes everything very clear. You know, it happened, but at the same time, these people had no right to laugh at it. You know, so that's why in our Indian culture, it is so strong that a younger person cannot correct an elderly person. You cannot do that. That is considered bad etiquette. Even if the elder person is wrong, the younger person may know that in his mind, but you cannot correct him. Because that's not considered your business to do that. So that is there here, where they paid a price. And another thing the Bhagavatam emphasizes is, even though such an incident happened, his service continues. The point is, the Acharya has explained that even if any fall down happens in our world, we have to reinstate and carry on. It is not that we quit our post saying that now we cannot do. So if something has happened, like we see Prabhupada also, when many disciples wrote to him that they couldn't maintain some rule or regulation or something like that, Prabhupada always told them that, okay, so then reinstate and just carry on your service. Prabhupada never told them that now you just go away, because that's not the way. That means even if any fault happens, one has to just reinstate and carry on. Yeah, so similarly another example in the same chapter is the anger of Brahmaji when Kumaras refused to obey. So so these are all examples given to say that other than Vishnu, everybody else can get bound in the creation. Even though they are very highly exalted people. Then what to speak of people like us? Because nobody is free from that. Yeah.
Regarding the 6 point service continues despite fall down.
Hare Krishna. Regarding the 6th point, where it says service continues despite fall down, how to distinguish it from saying that we are relaxing the standards and it's not important to follow the rules and regulations? How is it different? So it's okay, you broke the rules, fine. But this perspective is different from saying that.
I think here the main perspective is in terms of managerial, where you are looking at people in general. So that means the perspective in this particular verse is that the Lord did not remove him from the service. So if you see very carefully, not only with Brahmaji, once again, Indra, all these demigods have done so many mistakes.
I was thinking Prabhupada, when he told the other person,
Yeah.
how did he make sure that the other person...
How did he make sure that the other person took it as in a favorable way rather than thinking that rules and regulations are not important? How did Prabhupada ensure that? You made a mistake, fine, then but still continue. So how did he make sure that the other person did not take it as rules are not important, you can break it? Prabhupada will again say, fine, continue with it.
No, I mean, I'm not so sure exactly how Prabhupada did that in that sense, but like I'll give you some example. Like you see that Prabhupada is dealing with Gargamuni. He's a temple president of Calcutta. So he comes in with a resignation letter saying that I don't want to be temple president. So Prabhupada is saying, why you don't want to be? He's saying many reasons. I'm this, that, so many things he says. Prabhupada says, okay, that is no problem, still be. Finally he says, I'm unable to chant my 16 rounds, Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, no problem, still I want you to be temple president only. So then in that time, Gargamuni Prabhu says that I understood that no matter what Prabhupada wants me to be temple president, might as well I surrender to their instruction and do the job. So anyway, I gave a very extreme example of what you asked me. 16 rounds. See, these are two different things. Everyone is certainly expected to follow rules and regulations which you get from the spiritual master. And how do you do that? By hearing his instructions and Vani, you get encouragement to follow those standards. Correct? That's why the whole hearing process is there. We hear from the Guru so that we are motivated to continue our sadhana well. So that is there. But at the same time, if somebody is unable to do something, then as a managerially, what are you going to do? That's what is being said here. That means Brahmaji or Indra, they commit some mistake. Okay, now what are you going to do? Are you going to dismiss them from the post and put another guy over there? How long are you going to do that? Everybody in the material world will keep tripping, falling, something keeps happening to them. Are you going to dismiss everybody? No. So if you see Indra also, so many things he does, right? Does the Lord dismiss him from his post? Oh boy, iske saath kya uska naam hai wo jo raja Prithu, taking away the horse 100 times and this that. In fact, they come and tell Prithu only that you please give up this 100. Ye nahi sudhrega, tum to sudhre. Correct. So the point is, his post is never removed. Because That is not managerial decision. Managerially you tend to be compassionate, but as a guru and that means as a disciple and guru, that relationship is different. So when we talk about these Prabhupada pastimes, that is Prabhupada as a manager with his follower. Means if you want to isolate that a little bit, where you have to. But as a spiritual master, he always said that you have to follow. You have taken a vow, how can you not follow? Correct? But here you see two people merged in one, the guru and the manager. And that's how I will look at it. Right? So all these examples basically suggest that Brahmaji also, though he is such a great personality, right? Even he, at some points, he falls kind of prey to some particular situation. Because other than Vishnu, everybody else is bound in the creation. Yeah, and this is the final point actually, which we are making here. This comes in the context of, when Brahmaji creates Rudra. So after Kumaras, Brahmaji creates Rudra. So at that time, Rudra is coming and asking Brahmaji, please tell me the name and place where I will stay. So that is also considered very significant because everybody in the world need designation, service and a facility to function and operate. Without which you cannot operate in this world. You need a material designation. So for example, when Rudra is asking Brahmaji, give me a name and place to say, Brahmaji says, okay, these are your names, these are your wives, you have 11 names because you have 11 forms, and your each form has this as the wife, and this is the place where you will stay, and this is the function that you will do in this place. Then Rudra goes away. Till then he cries. So the idea is that in this world, when we come with this bodily identity, we need a designation, a service and a facility to operate. When that is there, then we can function in some suitable way. Otherwise, we all know that actually, that without the right designation, and in fact even our occupation, many times it's actually not for money. It is actually for a proper engagement. When a person is not engaged, he actually goes mad. We have seen that. As in he starts, the tendency to fall down also increases sometimes when you have not properly engaged. That means your mind and senses must be engaged properly. That's the whole point. So how you engage it, that we'll have to see in the material world. As long as we are in the material world, we'll have to ensure that we have a right designation, service and some facility to operate. Without which, we will land in some trouble. So that's it at this point. I think there's a very technical part. I'm sorry for that, but if any questions, we can discuss. Yeah, you have the mic.
So at our level, doing services is less from the perspective of pleasing the Lord and more from the perspective of engaging ourselves.
Of course, 200%. We are doing service for ourselves only, to be engaged ourselves. What will we do if we don't have the right engagement? Pleasing the Lord, that is just kind of connecting it, dovetailing it. That's mainly for us. Any other comment?
On the first slide itself, that Kriya, aapne bola.
Yeah. I'll just go to that one.
First one.
Yeah, this everything is captured.
No, previous one. This Jnana also, there is some word, na Kriya, kuch to be used.
Jnana Kriya.
No. Karta Kriya, aise kuch to be. Pehle ka.
Karo.
हाँ, doer.
Yeah.
हाँ, ठीक है, वो नीचे आया है.
Doer, instrument and effect.
तो doer ज्ञान से कैसे connected?
Yeah, good. Because how is the doer connected to jnana? The idea that kriya is we are only considered an instrument. That means we are considered the karana, the cause of something. But the actual doer is the demigods who are part of the jnana system. That means the jnana shakti of the Lord creates the demigods. That means if you see this eye, we are desiring to see. So in that sense, we are the instrument. But the actual doer is the sun god, who is actually controlling our eye. And who is acting, who is ensuring that the eye works and it sees. So the sun god is considered the real doer. You understood?
But we say in the triangle is there, na?
Triangle is there, na?
Yeah.
So in
The triangle is...
But in that we say that ultimately everything starts with my desire. Means the living entity.
So है ना इधर कारण है ना instrument. इसके लिए हमारा punishment है instrument कारणत्वम. Our desire with our senses.
He is the doer. No, then we say.
He is the
nothing happens.
No, you are confusing between desire and doer. There are two things. The desire is the karana. Yes, the desire is of the person only, but actually carried out by nature. That's why Krishna says, "Na prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvesha ahankar vimudatma karta aham iti manyate." He is thinking he is the doer. Actually, prakriti is the doer. In this context, prakriti being the doer means not only the three modes but also the devatas. They are the real doers. Whereas we are just an instrument. As in we are only being now doer. वो doer इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि हमको punishment नहीं. Punishment reward ये soul को ही है. Because you are considered the karanatvam, the real cause of everything, right? Yeah. Because you started there. You desired to see. That's why the sun god saw that. Otherwise the sun god wouldn't see it if you didn't desire to. Like that. Yeah. Any other comment? Yeah.
So their connection is not clear, or there is some.
Yeah, so that is karma. So if I have a karma that I am to be blind, I am not allowed to see that the sun god, the chakshu will not work in my system. So I will lose the ability to chakshu. So the chakshu, the disability is there because some particular demigod is not allowing me to see through my eyes. But in a higher sense.
But then when we do the operation and the disability gets cured, so are we forcing demigod or?
Okay. No. See, this is very clear. Any operation Prabhupada says, for example, that even if you do forget disability. Prabhupada says even if you do an operation and you feel that your life got extended, the idea is that your life had to be extended. That was all part of the karma process. See, if you notice very carefully, even going to a doctor, like most of us now, we have some health problem, let us say. Going to a doctor, standing in line, taking medicine from him, following all the patya, do-don'ts for several years, and then getting all right. वो भी कर्म है ना? It's a lot of engagement of, right? You understand my point, right? You are actually going through that whole process of something. But the point is ultimately it will go only if the karma allows you. So that is very clear from our perspective. It's not that you can bypass that. See, like Bhanu Maharaj defines this beautifully. He says, tamasic response to karma is to follow karma. That means you allow your karma to act on you always. That is tamasic approach to karma. That means to follow karma predictably is tamasic. I'll give an example. Dhritarashtra lost his 100 sons. Why did he lose, if you ask? Mahabharata says he killed 100 children. No, he killed 100 children of the bird in the past 50 lifetimes ago. Does it mean that he has to lose 100 children now? No. Try to understand. No. In this situation, had he acted in goodness and done things in a different way, obeying Krishna, the war could have been avoided. But his response is following karma. That means you just allow yourself to be carried away by situation. That is called as tamasic approach. Rajasic approach to karma, Bhanu Maharaj says, is to meddle with karma. That means बड़ा ट्यूब डालने का, बहुत कुछ करने का और बॉडी को रिपेयर करवाने का. That's considered rajasic approach to karma. Okay, so that's why, for example, Prabhupada said that when I pass away, don't allow me to pass away with tubes in my body. I don't want to pass away from this world with tubes hanging on to life. So that comes also on 14 November 77 when Prabhupada was about to pass away. The doctor suggested that he has not passed urine for 24 hours. Should we inject catherine and remove the urine? So the GBC decided no. We want to allow Prabhupada to pass away very naturally and not with all these pipes. Because anyway, even if you do that, that is a Rajasic approach. Because by doing that, you may extend life for a few hours, but not tangibly. Sattvic approach to karma, he says, is to behave in such a way in this world that actually you minimize the result of your previous actions. You understood? Like the same Dhritarashtra, let us take. If he adopted a Sattvic approach, he would have minimized that reaction. Perhaps his 100 children wouldn't have died, maybe one would have died, whatever, something else would have happened. We don't know what Mahabharata would have happened at that time. But the point is this. You understood, na? So, to follow karma predictably is tamasic. To meddle with karma in very gross ways is rajasic, because that's coming from, trying to endeavor and senses. You understood, na? But having the right knowledge and acting very judiciously in this world, it's considered sattvic approach, which minimizes effect of karma in life.
Can you give examples
That's a
of
bit confusing
someone who
actually.
did it?
Huh?
That's a bit confusing what you're saying about minimizing the impact. Because
Say in the mic.
because our understanding has been that good and bad, they don't they don't cancel each other. So you have to reap the both good and bad karmas. So when you say about minimizing, I don't understand that point. No, because my point is that if he kill 100 birds, then he has to get a similar amount of pain. Need not be by killing of 100 children of his in some other way, but similar amount of pain will come to him. He cannot minimize it. That's what I understand. If you've done something bad, it will come to you.
I'll tell again. Just like I'll tell what Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada writes that if somebody has been a thief in the last life, then in this life, he's born in the family of thieves. You understood? Because he has had a propensity of stealing. That propensity is facilitated by material nature. It says that वापस जन्म लो चोर के खानदान में. Now if he is in tamas, which is so the thing is, most of the world by default they follow karma predictably. Try to get this point. Almost all of us in this world, whatever karma is there in our system, we follow that very predictably. Are you getting this point? It takes a lot of effort to really change your thought processes and minimize the reaction. We are not saying that it gets wiped off. The reaction is actually minimized if you respond in sattva. But because that sattvic response is not there in this world, the default that stays is karma comes predictable. Please remember this. If Dhritarashtra, now I'll pose a question to you. If Dhritarashtra did 100 thing, he killed 100 birds, right? Now we have to see the death of his 100 children. The point, so I'll come to this example. I'll go to that other example of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada says that जो चोर है वो अगला जन्म में चोर की फैमिली में पैदा होता है. चोर के फैमिली में पैदा होने के बाद he will have the tendency of stealing from the beginning, because बाप दादा सब लोग चोरी है. दाऊद इब्राहिम ये वो सब पूरा परिवार ही वैसे है. Understood? सब 2 नंबर का धंधा है सबका. Correct? So generally, now you tell me one thing. Anybody born in the family, what's going to happen to him? He's going to follow that pattern predictably. No, try to understand. You get the point. Anybody who is in such a... So Prabhupada says that when that thief is born in such an environment again, he again starts doing the same act, because Prakriti facilitates your acts. And then now he's caught and punished for everything. From back, everything he gets punishment. You understood? So the point is, karma basically... See, what is karma? In one word, what is karma? Karma is environment. Please get this clear. Karma means environment. Karma means put you in some environment X. Next karma. That's the next thing. Correct? You understood the point, right? So some environment is like from birth. Like for example, I'm born ugly, I'm born rich. Some from birth. And some environment comes spontaneously in life as time progresses. But there are certain situations where you have to do some action also in this life. Like Dhritarashtra's case was like that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. See, though Dhritarashtra had killed 100 birds in the last life, in this life also he had to do a stupid thing of not listening to Krishna, Vidura, and behaving very whimsically and behaving in a very greedy, possessive manner, because of which he lost his 100 children. It is not that he just lost his 100 children at birth in an accident. He had to do something foolish. But because he was by and large just following the dictates of the body and mind, he was just dragged in that situation where he didn't really deliberate and think very carefully how he will minimize that effect. See, please remember, karma is a changeable entity. Among the 5 truths of Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, Karma is the thing which is always changing. So that's why even astrology or something can never tell you in a very pinpointed way exactly what will happen. You see that actually. वो बोलते हैं कि यहाँ ऐसा होगा, मतलब they say general framework, but still there could be, because your free will is also there, currently know what you are doing. Correct. So it's never that way so fixed. I could start, so that's what sattvic response to karma means. So in short, sattvic response to karma is to act by deliberation which is not for the purpose of minimizing reaction of karma. वो goal नहीं है sattva का. But sattvic action itself is with a deliberation. That means a sattvic person will always act with deliberation on any topic, and because he does that, he invites some environments. He will invite only because there is prarabdha karma, right? Prarabdha karma means something that has already happened, like you got a body, wo to hai. But still he will minimize further reactions from that point, even of the past. But tamasic will get it as it is, and rajasic will complicate it by meddling with it too much and trying to rectify it very grossly, something like that. So the example of that tubes is given. You put a lot of tubes. Yeah,
So this is fine. My question was actually not questioning this point.
yeah,
This was about the reactions of your karmas.
yeah,
Okay. So in plain simple, let me know that if you do some good karma
Yeah.
and some bad karma,
yeah.
the results, are they going to balance each other?
No, they
No,
don't.
Right. So if
Yeah,
somebody
but
has
still, please
inflicted-
remember, even a bad karma, if you do, there is something called prayaschitta, right?
That's another question.
Yeah, of course.
Prayashit, when you talk about
Yeah,
prayashit,
it is there. No, prayaschitta is another karma to nullify your bad karma. Hey, oh, shastrik hai oh. So that's why, see, you cannot, that good and bad karma doesn't nullify. You know why we say that? We say that to say that if somebody is doing lot of dhan and at the same time he is doing lot of chori, wo dhan ka benefit milega और chori ka bhi punishment milega. It's for that context we give that statement. That statement is not in the context that your bad karma can never be nullified. वो उसका context नहीं है. Context is there are people in the world who do some good things also, some bad things also. दोनों का उसको environment मिलेगा. उसके लिए हम वो स्टेटमेंट बोलते हैं. हम स्टेटमेंट इसके लिए नहीं बोलते कि तुम्हारा बैड कर्मा तुम्हारे साथ ही चिपका रहेगा. वैसा नहीं है कभी भी. Understand the point? That's the purpose of that. There is a purpose of any statement in the Shastra. Why that is being said? It is being said with that intention. Right? Make sense? Yeah? Sure? Yeah? Thinking? Of course, we went to karma from creation, but anyway, it's okay.
I'll just continue.
ये जो ऊपर कर दो उसको. नहीं नहीं नहीं
नहीं switch button को ऊपर
Prabhuji, the sattvic reaction is the best for karma. That is
yeah,
being knowledge.
minimal.
Yeah. But out of this rajas and tamas, like going with karma is better or meddling with karma is better?
I mean, basically, sattva, rajas, tamas. Sattva is only recommended generally, but the fact is that we are also in rajas and tamas. So, I will tell you what, honestly speaking, it is not just a question of intellectual adjustment. This whole understanding is not an intellectual adjustment. Whatever we are, and we will respond like that. It's as simple as that. Only thing, by a lot of knowledge and by good samskara, maybe we can increase some sattvikta in us. That's all. Right. Just like, I was speaking to an astrologer recently, one devotee astrologer. He was telling me that, Prabhuji, I have seen charts of devotees where the chart only suggests that he has to fall into illicit sex. You understood now? So I asked him, अरे फिर तो उसका हाथ में कुछ है ही नहीं भाई, वो रेगुलर प्रिंसिपल कैसे फॉलो करेगा? So then we were discussing on this point. So the point is that somebody's karma may be so strong, he has an environment, a body where he is susceptible to fall to such temptations repeatedly. And generally being in tamas and rajas, he will keep going in that direction. But if he decides to really maintain lot of sattva in his system, maybe he can minimize such situations. So that's the understanding. That's the purpose of that astrology, to tell you that this is how you are. Now you see how you want to handle yourself. Yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah. You were telling about this Rajas, the reaction, the karmic reaction in Rajas is because of the Rajasic reaction will be, Rajasic means
Passion.
Passion, trying to do something.
Endeavor, senses. So you meddle with everything.
You will meddle. Things are not going to change. They
Not
will be
going to
as.
change, yeah.
So you will put millions of pipes inside, but you will leave at that time. You are going to leave.
Yeah, or you may, like sometimes we see, somebody is in coma in the hospital, उसको 2 महीना और कोमा में रख के मरते हैं, वो डॉक्टर 5 लाख का बिल भी लेते हैं. So
वो लेते हैं
उनको लगता है कि हमको उसने
उनको satisfaction because they are in Rajas.
हाँ.
They derive a satisfaction कि मैंने कुछ किया और 2 घंटा लाइफ बढ़ गया.
That's all. Yeah, that's
it. 2 घंटे बाद जाना था. For example, Prabhupada's example, when he had to leave, he left in a very sattvic way. वो पाइप लगा के भी Prabhupada उसी टाइम जाते. Another thing was, I was thinking of examples like Tamasik, you said Dhritarashtra is an example where he was just freely flowing and constantly.
He was allowing his
pleading
karma to affect him.
helplessly,
Yeah.
Pleading helplessly, ki, what can I do? It's my karma. What
Okay.
can I do? That is Tamasik. Sattva, I was thinking this Bharat Maharaj, Jada Bharat. It was a very sattvic reaction. He had a problem, but it was
Yeah.
a very sattvic reaction to whatever karma he got. I could not think of a Rajasic reaction.
Oh, modern city life is full of rajas only, where you are constantly meddling and trying to see how you can increase happiness. Our whole civilization is rajasic around us. We don't need another example, right? It's a very passionate civilization where you are trying to increase your happiness by various things. You do various things and artificially try to increase your happiness, but the Shastra says that you are not doing much. You are just meddling. You are just worsening the situation. It is like the example of a monkey who gets stuck in that dumper, something like that. Any other comment? Yeah, Shamlera bro.
जो प्रायश्चित से तो बदल सकते हैं, अप्रारब्ध और इसको बदल सकते हैं, लेकिन भक्ति से तो हम प्रारब्ध को भी बदल सकते हैं. मतलब जो रूपा गोस्वामी बोलते हैं, प्रारब्धम अप्रारब्धम कूटम बीजम, सभी कुछ हम लोग
प्रारब्ध मिसेस और अप्रारब्ध मिसेस. प्रारब्ध कैसे बदल सकते? जो बॉडी मिल गया वो आ गया ना प्रभु जी. मैं काला शरीर मिला, बुद्धू आया, मैं मतलब जन्म में हाँ वो प्रारब्ध है. प्रारब्ध मतलब मैनिफेस्टेड ना, मैनिफेस्टेड नहीं जाता. अप्रारब्ध है वो आपने छोड़ दिया उस श्लोक पे. हाँ, अप्रारब्धम फलम पापम कूटम, वही है वो श्लोक.
अच्छा,
प्रारब्ध कैसे? प्रारब्ध मतलब जो हो गया मैनिफेस्टेड, वो कैसे बदल सकता है? मतलब आई एम नॉट श्योर. I have to go back and check again, but I think it's aprarabdha. It's not prarabdha. Anybody did Bhakti Shastri recently? You know.
We mentioned about demigods controlling different senses.
Yeah.
So, like for example, for mind, moon is the one which controls.
Yeah.
So moon is a personality, and it has to have mind also.
Yeah.
So who actually controls the mind of moon?
Aniruddha. So there is always a higher entity also, no? There is a presiding deity. That means ultimately Vishnu only is in charge of all senses in some form.
Okay.
Yeah, that is there na in the Shastra. बताया था ना मैंने?
Yeah.
हाँ बताया था मैंने. There are some demigods, but then the Bhagavatam also talks about Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshan, who are all in charge of everything.
So all the original deities of this controlling, they are actually
originally Vishnu only, but then Vishnu is giving this portfolio to various devatas. And these devatas seem to be positions to me. It is not person, it is position. It's something like this, you know. I mean, I was just thinking of an example. Like we have Prime Minister, na? So when Manmohan Singh goes and Narendra Modi comes and sits on the chair, sitting on the chair and that designation and that place itself reveals to him what he is supposed to do, right? Like, I mean, I had my own experience, you know, like I was the head of department for 6 years. They made me the dean in college. Initially, nobody gave me anything written of what is the duties of a dean. But somehow when I went and sat in that chair of dean and took over that particular position, immediately whatever I am supposed to do, I just started understanding. Kind of, you know. So my general understanding is that any position which is there, that position has that knowledge in that environment. Right? So all these are various positions created where the sense devata is connected to the sense. And it keeps changing. Different people become that demigod at different times. But anybody who occupies that post automatically gets that entire connection. And he is able to do. That's how it seems. Yeah. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. This, what is his name? I forgot. The astrologer devotee, he was only telling about this Rajasic reaction to karma. About how many times, about doctors only, we go to a doctor, we take a treatment, but unless the specified duration of our suffering gets over, even the best doctor's medicine will not work. And at the right time, you will land up maybe at the right doctor and it will work.
Yeah, but still we are supposed to endeavor.
We are supposed to endeavor.
Yeah, that is our dharma.
Unless we endeavor, even that may continue. Because then that is a reaction of our laziness.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. You are supposed to endeavor.
So, he gave one example.
That's why Prabhupada says that the source of your livelihood is not the source of your maintenance. It seems little cryptic. And that means our money that we earn is not the source of our livelihood. But to us it doesn't seem like that. You know, we are earning cash from office. That's what is actually maintaining us from our perspective. But it's not considered like that.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, regarding the Dhritarashtra example,
yeah.
The wrong choice that he made caused the death of his children.
Yeah.
But if he would have taken the right decision,
Yeah.
so would it guarantee the life of his children? Because he had to get the.
At least he wouldn't become responsible for it. See, then that environment would be like, I mean, his sons could have met an accident, or a snake would have bit them and died.
Yeah.
That is different. But now it is very clear that because of his stupidity only his sons died. Right? Yeah, that's the point. So you try to act from your way in sattva, which will minimize things. Then still if the environment is so strong, your karma is so strong that some environment will suddenly fall upon you. That's a different thing. Correct? But in Dhritarashtra's case, very clearly he only messed up. So that question only does not come. See, please remember, that's what Dhritarashtra tells Vidura, and that is not appreciated. Dhritarashtra tells Vidura that if my sons have to die, they will die only. Why should I give the kingdom back? Vidura says no. Vidura says destiny is the consequence of your action, not your action. Vidura says that destiny is consequence of your action, not your action. So don't say that if something has to happen, it will happen. ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. There is nothing that has to happen. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Because the Dhritarashtra repeatedly tells in the Mahabharata, if my sons have to die, they will die. Why should I return? Matlab, what he was using this philosophy to brush aside his responsibility of taking decision. You understand the point, na? He didn't want to take decision only. He just kept postponing in the name of destiny. That is tamasic approach to life. And he paid the karma in line. That's how it is.
So what was the reaction he got after?
His sons died because of his yeah.
But then anyways, if he would have gone. So, I mean, he had to suffer in hell after that.
Oh no, that's a different thing. He gets liberated, he goes to Brahman. That's a different thing. That's because of Vidura's mercy and all that. But his sons died. And that sons died is not just because of the past, it's because of the current. See, that's what, karma puts you in an environment. And sometimes it will put you in a very tempting environment where you have to do a mistake again. And then only get the result of it. There your tamas and sattva come into picture. If you are ready to act in sattva, you can minimize that over there. That's how it is seen. That's what Vidura is telling Dhritarashtra. Destiny is the consequence of your action, not your action. So that's a very important statement. Of course he did, but in some way he nullified everything because he went to Brahmajyoti, na? Dhritarashtra achieves liberation in the Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 13. So that question only doesn't come. Of course, for all the nonsense that he did, it was very bad. But then, because he took to the path of yoga and got moksha, he was saved. We can say like that, right? Yeah, I think we'll end the day. It's kind of a long discussion and that also quite a heavy discussion. With all the sarga visarga. I hope I have sufficiently, either two things would have happened. You are motivated to go back and read the Bhagavatam, or you are convinced that you better not touch such things again. So either of the things have happened. I am not sure what has actually happened, but anyway I leave it to each of you. Hare Krishna.